Good morning. We're here today to demonstrate the proper procedures when walking a house.
Our goal is to educate the viewer on what potential issues to look for during a home inspection. We will cover functionality and cosmetic concerns as well as safety issues.
Even though this house is in really good shape, we still want to go over every detail and every aspect of the house to give it a really good, thorough inspection. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, upon arrival to the house, one of the things that we like to do is to keep the house to the right side of us at all times. Eventually, you will touch everything in the house if you do this. For sure, we're going to check the function of the windows. We're going to make sure that the screens are intact. On a dual pane window, the seal can be damaged and it would fog up the glass. The other thing in a house that's been sitting as well, you can end up with broken windows or cracked windows, a BB gun shot through the window, etc. So we definitely check all of the windows for this type of damage. One of the other things we check on windows for sure is the ability for the window to lock, both for security and locking up the house, as well as for close of escrow and an inspection. They're definitely going to look at locks. We're going to walk along and check baseboards and make sure there isn't any damage, cracking. You got a little cracking here in this corner. That's something that can be touched up with paint and most likely will be, so it's not a huge issue. This being an outside wall would be an area to check in case there was leaking or any water staining or damage. In this case, it looks great. One of the other things that we check for is the plug and switch in the house. Are the cover plates intact? Are they broken? One of the reasons that this is important on receptacle covers is the electrical outlet is obviously hot as it relates to electricity inside, but also on the side right here, if you have access to the side of this, it's hot there as well. So again, a child can put their fingers in here and they'll get shocked. So very important to have cover plates on. It's definitely a safety issue. You could see this one here, the screws here. So you could see in this case, it was actually broken. So, this would need a replacement. The whole receptacle's loose. It could be tightened up and then a new cover put on. Obviously, we check on damaged paint. In this case, looks like something was hung here. This could be a touch-up. If you look at this wall here, it's really, really dirty. And what we call that is soiled. That cannot be touched up. We could paint the whole wall, but as you're going through a house and you notice it being really, really dirty and soiled like this wall is, and you're at 75% of the house being touched up, at that point you might as well paint the whole house. Another reason in this particular house why it wouldn't be a great idea to do a touch-up on this house is just because these are black painted. This is going to need primer, probably more than one coat, and then paint on top. This is not an easy fix, and I believe what the note said here was just touch up black spots in bedroom, in den. So again, just really, really important that we are able to fix this correctly. This particular wall has a drywall repair, so this is damaged. This is going to need to be filled in properly, most likely cut out, patched, and then texture applied, and then painted. So again, when you're talking about touching up a house, this is an area that's going to need, a little more than just touch up with the amount of work that it's going to be required. Another thing that Bruce is looking for at this point is just checking the light fixtures, making sure the chandelier is in good shape. Want to make sure that a house in rental ready shape does have proper working light bulbs. So we're going to definitely check all the light fixtures throughout the house. As we move into the kitchen, obviously one of the most important rooms in the house, also one of the areas that has the most room for damage. You got water at the refrigerator box, which he's demonstrating right now. He's going to be checking for any countertop cracking. Very important to check for that stuff. Also, one thing that we look for, and not that everybody can pull a stove out, but we do look behind to make sure that it's hooked up, to see if it's plugged in, if it's accessible. This one here didn't come on, so in this case he's looking to see if it's plugged in, the gas is hooked up, and if he's able to make it work. This particular range has a handle that's missing, so we were going to order a handle here. We always want to make sure that the doors are functioning This is a unit that does get hot, so you want to make sure all that stuff's intact for safety reasons as well. Appliances need to work in a kitchen. Cabinets, you'd look at the finish of the cabinet, make sure that it's, again, that it's all intact, that it's in good shape. This house, great shape. Cabinets are just ready to go. Probably just a wipe down would be necessary. You'll run the water in each side of the sink and then check underneath. Make sure that nothing's dripping or leaking or there's any past stains of water, something that we all see quite a bit. But very important how he goes to the right of the cabinet because water can travel. So he's going into the cabinet, not only under the sink, but to the right of the sink to check and make sure that the backs are good. I believe another thing he'll check under here is going to be the angle stops, the supply lines that are hooking up the water. We want to make sure that that stuff is all intact and that nothing's leaking there, as well as the black pipe, which is your drain pipe. Most of the time, this is just on, hand tight. So in certain instances, if there's water on a pipe, you can feel it. This is all just hand tight, can be loosened with your hand. So an area to look for sure. Also, having a flashlight is really important because you can't really see without the light, but you stick a light on something, it's going to reflect against water, it's going to show you any dripping, etc. So it's just really, really important part of an inspection is to have a flashlight with you. One of the things in this property we checked, and we do in every property, is the tile. Ceramic tile, when it's cracked and broken, is very sharp, can be dangerous, can definitely be a safety hazard. What else we look for when we notice that they're broken is the ability for this one here, you can start seeing the hairline crack. It's not long before this here just completely falls off and then becomes a safety hazard, which this is here. This little surface right here is so sharp. Did this house sell right now and have somebody, be okay with this? That would be fine. I think in a rental situation, we don't want this unsafe tile to be in the house at all and possibly cut somebody. Very important aspect of any house is obviously the flooring. And in this particular case, looks like a nice 12 by 12 patterned ceramic. So it's got an indentation in it. This house, for example, is let's say 5 years old. You're not going to find this tile again. So as we have cracked tiles, damaged tiles, broken tiles, we really need to figure out a solution for repairing those. Now, we can just put a different color tile in if we're worried about a safety issue, but on a cosmetic fix, if we're really trying to make the house look good, if we had too many broken tiles in this room, we would need to replace the whole kitchen. It's just not going to match, it's not going to look good. You got different dye lots when you're talking about flooring and carpet, etc. So as he's going through, he's checking for chips or damage or anything to the tile that could either be one, unsafe, or two, just cosmetically inferior. We will definitely check fireplaces, make sure the doors are functioning, intact, not broken. It's definitely a code. Right now what he's looking at is the gas stem, making sure that there's either a valve on there. In this case, there's just a cap. So it's got screens, they're good. It's got doors, they're intact. There's also a flue that could be open or closed. And this is something that you want to definitely make sure you check is fireplaces in every house. Carbon monoxide detectors are mandatory in both levels. Of a 2-story house, you need one upstairs, you need one downstairs. If it's a 1-story house and you only need one through the house, then these should not be on the ceiling of a house. They should be approximately 4 feet or at eye level is what the manual states for those to be installed. So it's something that you definitely want to check on every house that they're here, and we do go through and check for those as well. Something very important in these houses is to check all the closets. We want to make sure that there's definitely closet doors. In the event that they're mirrored, that there's nothing broken. In this case, these are off the track. These very light vinyl type doors, they just pop right off the track very easily. Doesn't necessarily mean they're broken. I mean, they can just be put right back on and they're good to go. So we're in a laundry room here. Typical to check behind doors. We want to make sure that we check for any leaking coming out of the hot and cold side of the washer box, that the gas has a valve. Anytime there's a water source, we want to make sure we're checking for any leaks or any damage. So in this particular case, one of the things we talked about was our flooring and the fact that it could have some chipped or broken tiles. And we look here and we find approximately 8 to 10 tiles in good shape. So this would be something that's very important. If there was 3 chipped tiles or broken tiles and you see that there's tiles available, that's something you'd want to note. Chipped tiles at kitchen and appeared to be 10 perfectly good tiles that could be used in the closet. Okay, something really important on a house at the garage to house access. This is what's called a fire door. This is a solid core door with bomber hinges. Those hinges he pointed at were hinges that are loaded that allow the door, if he lets go, it will shut on its own. Big no-no right here. Should not have something stopping it from closing. The theory here is if there was a fire in the garage, which they found most fires start in the garage, that if there was a draft, it would shoot the fire right into the house. So this stopper here would be something you'd want to note and ask us to take it off. All right, several things on the water heater. This here copper area is the temperature and pressure relief valve, also known as the T&P. And this valve should go outside and should not just dump in the garage. Then you have your vent system here, venting it out. Again, very, very important aspect of the house. You need to really make sure that this stuff is all here and intact on the water heater. We have our seismic strapping, where you have your strap. It's a third top, a third in the bottom, preferably not covering up any labeling that could be important. Another area that's very important is the tag itself. The significance of the tag would be to check the year, the size of the tank. Another thing on these is the gas valve and line. You want to make sure that's all intact, which in this case it looks good. Another area where really significant leaking occurs is around the water heater, when you end up just destroying this platform and having to replace all that. In a garage, when you're looking at the drywall that is attached to the house that has living quarter on the other side of it, this is considered a firewall. The safety purpose is for a fire barrier. When you have this wall that's touching a house, they don't want the fire to get into the house. So in reference to the carpet in a house, it's really, really difficult to make a determination if we're going to replace carpet or leave it alone. In this case, it's a white carpet. Not always the best thing for a rental property. However, I think the theory here is let's leave it, let's stretch it, fix it. Up the stairs here, there is some damage to the carpet, but what we're gonna do here is repair what's needed and throw a steam clean on this carpet and try to get, say, one more tenant out of this particular house and carpet before we end up having to replace it. And then obviously once we do replace it, we'll go with a much darker earth tone carpet rather than a really light colored carpet, which this is a very close to white carpet. Important on two-story houses is definitely the banisters. For one, the banisters are spaced according to codes for children. So in this case right here, where he has 2 of them that he could push through, the spacing would be that a small child could actually push their way through and fall off that level. Obviously, we can see the safety purpose there. So this is something that we definitely want to make sure that we check out. The banisters are not just for looks, but actually a safety precaution. Again, we're going to go upstairs, keeping to the right. Again, the path of this house is keeping the house to your right. And he's checking the doors right now, make sure there's no visible holes. Check the ceiling, make sure there's no visible signs of any leaking, water stains, etc. The bathroom he's checking here again, under the sinks. Just checking the angle stops and supply lines underneath each sink. Anywhere there's water, we definitely want to check for all of that stuff for sure. Making sure that there's no leaking. You want to watch for staining of the cabinet. In this particular case, you have staining right there on the bottom, which could appear to be a leak. When checking this stuff, we want to make sure that that's either an old leak or possibly, some sort of product that was there and just kind of dripped out of the bottle. Running the water in a bathtub with the light again, making sure on a fiberglass tub that there's not a lot of cracking, chipping, any sort of damage to the tub. Flushing of the toilets is important. Obviously, you wouldn't want to have a backup situation. You'd want to note that on an inspection. On the exterior inspection, we want to make sure to check all doors for the ability for them to be secured and that they're not delaminating. A lot of times on these garage outdoors, you will get a delamination where the door is just actually falling apart. Some houses have an air conditioning unit. Outside is the air conditioning condenser. The condenser on this particular unit is a newer condenser, appears to be, and it looks like it's in good shape. There is an access service disconnect, which is access to disable the unit. As he pulls that out there, it would either be a fuse or in this case just a disconnect. It's really there for service purposes. It's there so that somebody working on the unit can disconnect the electricity to the unit, not to chop his fingers off while working on the unit. Exterior fence, very important for several reasons. One, if there's a pool, we need to secure that pool. If there is dogs in the neighborhood, we need to secure them from not being able to come in, and just overall security of the house. So we definitely want to make sure that the fence is intact, that it's in good shape. It's very typical, this one here, exterior, hot days, cold days, wood fence. I mean, they just deteriorate outside. So pretty common to have a few slats broken or missing. That's something we'd mention, again, for security. One thing to look at is if the grass is intact, sometimes you can get the water to come back on and get it to grow. Where you see here is a lot of dirt, a lot of weeds. Pretty much the grass is gone. If you can see the netting from the old sod, chances are the grass is gone. The one thing here that's great is obviously that there is sprinkler systems. You know that because there is some broken pieces here and there. So we'd want to repair sprinkler systems as needed, get this thing watering again, and either try a overseed topsoil depending on the season or an actual sod replacement. So something really important also to look for outside is the appearance of the stucco, the appearance of the eaves and fascia board, that it's not flaking, chipping, or peeling. That is something that will come up on an FHA inspection. Again, this case here, great house, good shape. We don't see a lot of flaking or peeling of exterior paint of any kind. It's typical on the residential properties, especially in this area, in the newer houses. The front of the house at the front spigot is your main water service coming in. So you start at the meter down at the street, and then you have your main water service over here. In this case, the blue valve, that would be to shut off the water to the irrigation system. The gate valve underneath the hose, that would be to shut the water to the house. And then above that, you have a pressure regulator. This is regulating the pressure to the house so to not get the street pressure, which could be too high for residential plumbing, so they put a regulator on it to give it less pressure. Well, that was our demonstration for today. We hope you learned the proper way to do a residential construction evaluation. Thank you very much.